Well, hello friends, and welcome to another Ask Zach. I hope you are doing well today. Today we're going to talk about the best playing advice that I've ever gotten. Also want to do a little, kind of house cleaning on, revisiting the James Burton Ooh Las Vegas thing, which I just played the outro lick. But first, a little short pause for the cause. Please, if you haven't subscribed and you've been enjoying, go down to the corner. And then if you've been watching the show and you'd like to support it, please go to askzach.com and you can go to the store there. And we've got nice mugs like this one or t-shirts, and I really appreciate it. Also at askzach.com, I'm starting to post a lot of fun articles that I've written in the past. One of the featured ones is my 2005 interview with Tom Bukovac. And it was my first interview that I'd ever conducted, and also I had to take the photographs for it. So of course in the article there were only 2 photographs used. And on the website there's a bunch of other ones that I also took of his gear that weren't included in the original article in Vintage Guitar Magazine. There's also a nice interview I did with Stuart Smith of the Eagles, and that's on there, and also one on John Leventhal. And that has besides being a great fun interview, have a bunch of pictures of his guitars that he's used on all his records. So yeah, check that out. All right, first off, the opening lick that I played. So back, earlier this year, I should say, I did an episode on James Burton, and I played the intro lick to Ooh Las Vegas, the little banjo thing. That's a Graham Parsons tune. Of course, we're talking about the Emmylou Harris version of it. Of course, James Burton played on both. So somebody asked me about the outro lick, and I was befuddled by it, and I played some other kind of lick in one of my past episodes trying to pass for it. But, as what happens with these things is that once you put an episode out and people start asking questions, well, somebody has the answer. And that's one thing that, yes, the channel's called Ask Zach, but, really it's about having the humility to ask the right people. So when people ask me a question, sometimes I do know the answer, but many times I have to go get help from Fender or Gibson or Ernie Ball or Bill Crook or, whoever it might be. So anyway, in this case, Heitor Crespo, who is a fantastic guitar player, and he plays in kind of Elvis tribute impersonator bands, and he has James's style down pat to the point of he's taken Elvis live recordings and can play everything that James plays during the entire show. So it was no big deal for him to to take this lick and show it to me. And so he was kind enough to send me a video of it, and then I had to ask him to send it to me where he was playing it slower, because it was still so fast. And just so you know, this is kind of it's one of James's licks that if you're an Elvis fan and if you've heard a lot of his live stuff, then you've heard James do it before, because he would use it with Elvis live a fair amount. But for those that haven't listened to a lot of Elvis, bootlegs and stuff, you probably haven't heard the lick before, except at the end of Ooh Las Vegas. So without further ado, here it is. And of course, we're in the key of E, and we start off on an A note on the B string, and I'm just going to play this super slow, and I'm going to pull my hand away to kind of show that I'm playing an open string, and hopefully you can catch on to it if you want to learn it. So. Again, and again, we're starting on the B string on an A note. very fun lick. And yeah, if you want to hear James doing it more, listen to the recently released live stuff from 1969 on the Ray Charles tune, What I Say. He plays it a couple times in one of his solos, plays that lick, and it's nice. All right, now talking about playing advice. So of course, you know, I've gotten a fair amount of playing advice, you know, through the years from different people. I remember John Pell, who's the head of the guitar department at Belmont University, where I went to school and graduated. He was all about knowing the neck of the guitar, and that's great advice. Guthrie Trapp, who I've I've interviewed him twice, did a recent kind of Skype True Tone Lounge thing with, and he's very much into knowing the chord shapes up and down the neck and kind of the caged system, and playing chord tones instead of scales and such. That's his kind of playing advice. But the best playing advice I ever got was not from a musician per se. It was from my music-loving father. So when I was just learning how to play the guitar, he gave me the most important advice that I've ever gotten and could ever give to anyone. And it used to just burn my hide when he would say this to me. But he'd say, clean and clear. And so I'd be trying to play some lick, and I'd be slurring it and kind of messing it up, kind of like instead of saying, hey there, Mr. Man, it'd be, hey there, Mr. Man, it'd be all this, slurred stuff. You couldn't tell what the notes were. And just to give a little background on my dad saw Elvis in the 50s. He saw Little Richard in the 50s. He saw B.B. King in the 50s. He saw Ray Charles, in a nightclub and sat, right near his piano. He was part owner of a bar at one point because my dad was an auto dealer, and because he was an auto dealer in a little town in Texas, he could get a liquor license. And this little bar, they had Albert King and other people come down and play there because it was part of the Chitlin circuit down in South Texas. And so my dad, even though he wasn't a musician, he knew music, and he was a serious music listener, and probably one of the great examples of his ear, besides being hard on his son's playing, which I'm grateful for, was I was way into Eric Clapton early on, and I was listening a lot to all of his solo stuff, up through, I guess that would have been through about the Forever Man era, and a little bit after that, maybe Journeyman, but also of course Cream and the Blues Breakers. And my dad would come in, while I was listening to like the Blues Breakers or Derek and the Dominoes and stuff like that, and he'd kind of, One day, I had heard about the Mike Bloomfield Super Session album, and I put that album on the first cut, Albert Shuffle, and as soon as my dad heard that, he came into the room and he said, now that's real guitar playing. My dad appreciated Clapton, but when he heard, Michael Bloomfield, he was like, that's the real thing. And I was blown away by that. But of course it was funny, of course Eric's an Englishman, and Mike Bloomfield was a good Jewish boy, from Chicago. So, but yeah, so there's kind of my dad, and so my dad passed away a couple of years ago, but before he did, we used to go and see music together, and one of the shows we went to is that poster on the wall, and that's why I have that Hatch show print, and it's very special to me because that was a show that my father and I went to before he passed away, and Another thing we went to see was we saw Delbert McClinton with Bob Britt and James Pennebaker playing guitar. And this was, my dad was very close to dying at this point, and he was in a lot of pain, and he was barely able to make it into the venue. And you know, we got there and we sat down, but as soon as he heard that great music that Delbert and his fantastic band were playing, it was like it just lifted him up, and it gave him a nice you know, chunk of happiness. So I'm always grateful to those guys. So yes, he said clean and clear, and you know, and then he would also tell me things like play it like you mean it, you know, play it with authority. And that's one of the biggest things I see with younger players and even older players that are still, you know, kind of amateurs, is sometimes you can play notes just like, you know, hitting keys on a keyboard, but you need to play, you know, music with feeling and with authority, and you need to be assertive when you play those notes. It can't be just, you know, can't be just notes. You know, you gotta feel it. And again, not like you have to get in someone's face and just get angry or something like that, but it's just playing things with meaning and substance. So I'm forever grateful to my father, who, you know, frustrated the crap out of me as a kid, because he used to come into my room all the time when I was practicing, and he'd say, clean and clear. So just remember that, clean and clear. And that doesn't mean not playing with overdrive or something like that, or not using effects, but just meaning, you know, every note, play it like you mean it, you know, play it dead on the note, and yeah, just make good music. So I feel like I should play something else. So here, I'll just play a little bit. I'll put a little tremolo on, and this, of course, is my Bill Crook Paisley Telecaster that he made for me, and it's a great guitar, and you know, it's got the prettiest Paisley finish I've ever seen outside of the real thing from '68 or '69. So let's go to both pickups, put a little tremolo on. All right. Well, I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye.